if you say training is your priority and then you miss a session, you perhaps decide, do you know what, I'll miss the session, I'll just go out for food or go out on some social event. It is clear then that training is not your priority. Okay, we are ready to go. Hey guys, what is going on, and welcome back to the Fortem Training Podcast with me, head coach and owner, Kieran Douglas Jones, episode 8. We're 8 episodes strong. This is episode number 8. We are talking about aligning your actions with your priorities. Before we get into that, gotta let you know, we are now available on iTunes, and also, hopefully by the time this episode goes out, we are also available on Stitcher. So to find us on there, search for Fortem Training Podcast, and we should come right on up over there. If you are just listening to this, you should know that we are also over on YouTube for you to watch. We're in a new location today. We're inside the kitchen. Not because this episode is anything to do with nutrition, but just because the weather is not being too kind to us. It seems as though the British summer has been and gone. We're back to sort of grey, overcast and rain, so obviously can't be outside with all this good stuff. So yeah, episode number 8. I hope you're enjoying the podcast so far. I'm certainly enjoying recording. Very, very good fun, filled by a whole bunch of coffee here today for the benefit of the listeners. Freshly brewed pot right next to me that I will be digging into as we get through this. But let's kick things off. Aligning your actions with your priorities. This is something that we work very closely with in terms of our clients, our individual clients, but not only our individual clients, but also even down to the people that come to the classes that I run as well. Aligning your actions with your priorities is something that it's something that you really have to do in order for you to really make big progress, and for you to really reach your goals and get to the places that you want to get to. Because you can imagine you want to get to point B, but you are going via here, there and everywhere. It's going to be a much longer road than if you pick the right track, give it everything, be consistent, and you will get there much quicker. So I'm talking about when I say aligning your actions with your priorities, it's about doing things that move you closer to what you want to achieve and move you closer to the goals that you have set out. So like, as an example, a really good example of this is very often you see people that say, I want to get fitter, I want to get stronger, I want to lose this, I want to lose weight, I want to lose body fat. But you can't want to get fitter and stronger then not make training and make your training sessions a priority in your lifestyle. Now I understand there are the non-negotiables that you have to work around, whether it is work. We all go to work to live. We all need money to live. We all just simply have to work. That's how we all live. Family time, obviously, for some more than others. Obviously, some don't have families. Or don't have kids. Obviously, for the most part, you all have families, but some don't have kids, so you don't have to then spend that time with the kids. So that's another non-negotiable, or should be a non-negotiable for you in your lifestyle. But yeah, like I said, you can't want to get fitter or want to get stronger, but then not make training one of the priorities in your lifestyle. And if you are just training to be healthy and you don't necessarily want to get specifically fitter or specifically stronger or any specific target that you want to move towards within a certain time frame, then training doesn't necessarily have to be a priority. This is sort of the opposite side to what I'm talking about in terms of aligning your actions with your priorities, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. if you're just training to just stay healthy and you want to train now and again and you just want to ease and drop in and flow into it when you feel like you can and when you feel like you want to, then that works as well. Then that really does work for a lot of people. And it's but on the side of aligning your actions, if you are training for competition, or if you are, competition's probably a bad example, because if you are training for competition, then you already have that drive and the want to go and compete, so you don't necessarily have to change anything. But if you are just training generally to lose a bit of weight, or to put on some muscle, if you want to get fitter, you want to get leaner, then you can't say that you want to do that and say that that is your priority and then let your actions not follow in line with what you say your priorities are. So if you say you want to get fitter and stronger, then your actions, you must then make training your priority. You must not miss sessions. You must do everything on the programming. You must follow it as closely as possible. You must give everything in that particular session that you are in. I got a little bit of a link to that, which I'll come to in a minute. But if you miss a session, if you say training is your priority and then you miss a session, you perhaps decide, do you know what? I'll miss the session. I'll just go out for food or go out on some social event. It is clear then that training is not your priority. Training is not then one of your best priorities. If you're moving your training to fit around everything else, then it is clear that training is not your priority. That is absolutely fine. There's nothing wrong with training not being your priority, but you must then realize that if training is not your priority and you fit your training, quote unquote, fit your training in around everything else in your lifestyle, or around your social events, or around going out for food, then you have to realize that your progress is going to be limited, because you are sort of, training isn't the main focus. You're just fitting it in when you can. You're not really sort of on a path that, not necessarily a path that can lead to progress, because you can still work like that and it can still lead to some form of progress, but it's not necessarily, you then have to realize that if you are fitting training in around and moving training around, you've booked into sessions, and then you start, I can't get there, I'm going to go out for food, or I'm going to go and do something else, or I'm doing this and doing that instead of your training, then you do have to realize that your progress will be more limited than it would be if you were to make training that priority, make it one of your top 3, and hit it hard every time. There is sort of the trade-off of, if you do not make it a priority, then you do have to realize that your progress is going to be more limited. Then you can see clearly that people that do have training as their priority, if training and your goals were a priority, and you see it in people, if it were your priority, then you would fit things around your set training. Your training would, if you were to write up your diary for the week, your training would be the first things that go in. Obviously, fit in around the non-negotiables of work, of family time. Those things are fundamentally non-negotiables, and I'm not talking about them when I'm talking about your priorities. What I'm talking about is everything else outside of that, which is social, which is your social life, which is your nutrition, which is your training, which is your sleep. Those kinds of things is what I'm talking about when we're aligning priorities and aligning actions. So if you were then to write out your diary for the week, you took Sunday night, write out your diary for the next week, the first things that should go in, or that would go in if training was your priority, would be your training times and your training sessions. They would be the first things that go in, and then you would see from there what you could fit in around those training sessions. And that's when you do have that, and when you do have your training, I'm using training as an example, it could also be your nutrition. It could also be you spending time learning. You've made education your priority, and you set out your education hours in your diary. Whatever it is, if you set those hours in, and if it is an actual priority, for you, then those hours will be set in stone and they won't move, and you'll move everything else around that. I think that's well and truly covered. Align your actions with your priorities. To make real progress, I think we do have to realize that we do have to align our actions with our priorities to make the most progress. To make the most progress, the best way is to set things in stone. Don't miss them. Don't miss training sessions. Don't move around. Don't move them around. Make sure you get there. Make sure you do all the programming. Make sure you don't skimp reps. Make sure you give absolutely every effort. And I said there was a link that I was going to come back to, so I'll jump that in before I have a quick break, sort this coffee out. When I say get there for every session, get there for every session. Be there. Even if you don't feel... There's a difference between not feeling like you want to do it and not feeling like you want to do it because you are hurting from a previous session. There is a big difference from not quite feeling it because you're sore and not quite feeling it because you can't be bothered. There is a huge difference between those two. You will understand, and you know within yourself if you are feeling sore and if you're not quite feeling it for that day because you've pushed hard in previous days or you've trained really well for the past couple of days. You will know that you've pushed really hard, and you will absolutely know inside of yourself that the reason you don't feel like doing it is because you have pushed hard. On the other hand, there are those days where I don't feel like doing it, I can't be bothered, this is wrong, that is wrong. On those days, perhaps the session isn't going to be 100%, but not every session has to be your absolute 100%. What could be 100% for that in particular day could be 85% of your overall capacity, so to speak, for want of a better word. For that particular day, you might only be able to work at 85% of your overall capacity, but that 85% is the best you can do for that day, and it is better to do those sessions and get them done and work your way through them than to miss them completely and to miss them all together. Consistency, and this sort of all ties into something I spoke about a little bit in... Which episode was it? I don't know if it was 3. It was episode 3. Talked about consistency over perfection, and that absolutely rings true in this, that when you do aligning your actions and your priorities and making sure that you don't miss training sessions, it is much better to be consistent than to program in 4 sessions, go 100% for 2 and then miss those other 2. You are better to make sure that you get all 4 sessions done, even if it is at 85-90%, than to hit 2 sessions fucking absolutely max effort and then just forget about the other 2 sessions. So yeah, we're going to head into a break. Sort this coffee out. This coffee, Extreme Bean Coffee. If you are a big fan of memes, you need to go and check them out on Instagram. An absolute plethora. I think I've mentioned it before. There's an absolute plethora of coffee-based or CrossFit-based memes, so go and check them out. Also, they do make very good coffee. After the break, I'm going to be talking a little bit about how we work, the process of how we work with clients in helping them set goals, helping them then set their priorities, and then helping them then work around those priorities. And also encompassing that is trying to meet them where they're at and help them develop a realistic set of goals and a realistic priorities. Then finishing off with talking about how much they can actually commit. That's a big role of what we do when we do set out goals and priorities and those kinds of things, is commitment, and how much they are actually able to commit to the training or commit to the nutrition or commit to everything that we're trying to do to help get them progress. Because if they can't commit, then it's something that we really need to work on and see just how much they can commit. So yeah, take a quick break, and then we will come back and talk about that process. Hey guys, thank you so much for listening to the podcast. I really do appreciate your time. So as a thank you for tuning in, we're offering you 1 month of fully individualized custom programming with full access to myself as your head coach, along with access to a Fitbod account and full nutrition guidance as each of our individual clients gets. So to get involved, fire us an email at info@fortemtraining.com, include your name and what episode you saw this advert on, and I'll get right back at you to get you set up with your Fitbod account and to get you going on your first month of free programming. Okay, we are back. Part 2, episode 8 of the Fortem Training podcast. In part 1, spoke a little bit about why you need to align your actions with your priorities in order to make the real progress. And if you don't, perhaps just have to realize that perhaps your progress is going to take a little bit longer. Not to say that you cannot make progress without absolutely aligning everything. In this second part, before we get into it, coffee for the benefit of the listeners, wherever you are listening, whether it is on iTunes or on Stitcher, or if you are still listening over on SoundCloud. If you are enjoying the episode, please leave us a 5-star rating. I really would appreciate it absolutely immensely. That would be absolutely superb if you could leave a 5-star rating. And also, if you do have any feedback, please do fire it our way at fortem.training on Instagram, or send an email to info@fortemtraining.com. But yeah, coffee. I've got a 1 mug French press, and also a very, very good Christmas present in this camera lens shaped mug. Like I said just before we cut off, for the break, Extreme Bean Coffee, go and check them out. Very, very nice coffee. I'm drinking the Endurance blend, which I haven't tried before, but it is actually very, very nice. They also do the Focus Fuel and what's the other one? Rush. That is the other one. So yeah, in this part, we are going to be talking about how we work with clients to set goals, help them set realistic goals that they can achieve, explain to them and talk to them about what is then needed for those goals, can they commit to it, and then helping them set priorities and perhaps adapting their mindset to their goals and those kinds of things. So the way we work it is sort of like a somewhat of a 4-step process. This is sort of the general guideline that I follow to sort of work with clients, and something that I've used to what's the right word? Something that I've sort of developed over sort of many attempts isn't the right word, just many conversations and many sort of workings with clients and those kinds of things. It is not a cookie cutter approach. It's not something that we do adapt, that I do adapt dependent on where the client is at. And that'll make more sense as I explain through it and get through it in a little bit more detail. So there's sort of a 4-step sort of process, not necessarily a process, a 4-step sort of guideline that I follow in order to help clients sort of set realistic stuff, realistic goals and their priorities and their commitment and all those kinds of things. So like I said, in the first part is aligning your actions and aligning what you do with your priorities and with where you want to go. Is the best way to give yourself the best opportunity to make progress in the long term. And like I've mentioned before, the long term is something that I am really passionate about in terms of longevity in training. And this training for me should be about longevity. It's a little bit different if you are trying to compete, but if you are just training for health and fitness, then longevity and the long-term gains are something that should be very much in the forefront of your mind. So yeah, let's dig into this 4-step process that we work through with our clients. The first one is basically setting goals, and it is the first sort of initial interaction or initial conversation with the client that we have in terms of what they want to get out of training, whether it is to add 20 kilos to the back squat, whether it is to lose 10 kilos of body fat, whether it is to take I don't know, take time off Murph, or as a, whatever it is. That is, the goals are sort of the initial piece, initial sort of in the consultation process, what they want to initially get out of training, why they've come to us, why they've what they've done previously, and why they want to go to where they want to go as well. That's a big part of this first of the first initial interaction. And the first step of setting goals is not only what the goals are, but also why. Trying to understand why they want to get to where they want to go, whether it is just because they want to get stronger, add 20 kilos to the back squat because they want to get stronger for other lifts, whether it is losing 10 kilos of body fat because they want to look better, they want to feel better, they want to live healthier lifestyle. If it is they want to take minutes off WOD times, then perhaps that's because they want to be more competitive, they want to get fitter, they just want to be generally better at CrossFit. Whatever it is, the first part is not only about what the goal is, but also trying to find out why, and sort of why the client wants to get to that position and why they want to be there, why that's the sort of position they want to get to, or the road they want to go down in terms of what progress they want to make. The second part is then breaking down that goal into smaller goals, and sort of what actions or what they need to do or what we need to do to give them the tools to reach that goal. If it is I'll give 2 examples. If it is a client that wants to add 20 kilos to their back squat, to add 20 kilos to their back squat, what we need to do is assess their technique, see how they're going. First thing is we would assess technique and see where they're at for a starting point. Then, in terms of sort of as a general what they need to do, what is needed, they will need to squat 2-3 times a week, maybe dependent on how quickly they ideally would like to get there, or if there is a set time frame that they want that to achieve that 20 kilos in, then 2-3 times a week squatting. We will then work around the sort of sets and reps dependent on the initial assessment on where their starting point is. And that is sort of what I mean by the actions and what is needed. We break it down further, obviously in much more detail when we work with each individual client. But another example could be someone that's trying to lose a lot of body fat. Their goal is, I want to lose, I don't know, like the example I just gave, 10 kilos of body fat. 10 kilos is a fair amount of body fat. So if you wanted to lose that much, what they would need to be able to do that would be to look at their nutrition. They would really need to dial in their nutrition. They would probably, for the most part, look to try and increase their activity levels. Then try and look at their overall lifestyle, maybe try and make some changes from there, what they would need to do, whether it is that they stay up late, wake up early, they're not sleeping. That doesn't help very much in any case, whatever your goal is. So what we would do then is we set out sort of those 3 actions, what is needed, and we break those down further. Nutrition. What sort of macros do they need to be on if they want to go down a macros track, which if you do need to lose 10 kilos of body fat, you probably do need to do, and you need to have a much clearer idea of portion sizes, what foods look like what foods are nutrient dense, those kinds of things. And we would break each of those down much further with the client and help them understand what it is they would need to do to get to the point that they need to get to. So then the third point, the third step, sorry, couldn't get my words out. The third step that we would then do is we've looked at their goals, we've looked at what they need to do. Then thirdly, we would look at, can they commit to what is needed? If for someone that needs to lose 10 kilos of body fat, we say, do you know what, you need to come in and train 3 times a week. Can they commit long term? We need to work with them and see if can they commit long term to 3 sessions a week. You know, they might find like, I don't think I could really do that, then it is next best thing, can they commit to 2 sessions a week? And they say, yeah, they can commit to 2 sessions a week. So they can't quite commit to the full 3 sessions, but we can work up to that if it is something that we can get to. But they can commit to the 2 sessions a week. So then we have to have to help them understand that they'd be better off going, if they could, to 3 sessions a week. But for the long term, if they can commit to 2 sessions a week for a long period of time, then that is going to be hugely, hugely, hugely beneficial to them reaching their goals. But then another example, perhaps if you say they can only commit to 1 session a week and they can only train once a week, then that is quite a way from 3 sessions a week, and the sort of energy expenditure with that 1 session compared to 3 is a pretty big difference. So what you may then have to do, or what you may then have to do, is sort of look at the goals of the client and help them sort of reassess and perhaps then help them realize that by doing 1 session a week, yes, you can make progress, but that losing that 10 kilos of body fat might well be a lot further away than what they would have expected it to be. So that is something that you really do have to address at the start. If 3 sessions is the recommended, and this is all an example, so take from it what you will. You could apply it to pretty much anything. Apologies, the phone is ringing in the background. I'm just going to cut this a little bit out and cut to when the phone stops ringing. Okay, the phone has stopped ringing. Apologies for that. I didn't want to keep talking over the phone ringing in the background. So yeah, taking that client and helping them understand from the very beginning that if they can't commit to those 3 sessions, they can only commit to that 1, then their goal of that 10 kilos is probably a lot further away than they expect. And if you don't sort of address that at the start of the relationship or the start of the training process, then somewhere down the line, they are going to be wondering why they are not getting to that point, and not of any fault of their own. Some people don't know what to expect, but as a trainer, I think you have the responsibility, and I think for me, I definitely feel like as a trainer, you have a huge, huge responsibility with that person, because they have given you their health and their fitness, and they've come to you for you to improve it. So helping them understand that perhaps in this example, that 10 kilos is probably a lot further away because they can't commit to something that they need to be in is something that you really need to do at the start of the relationship. Then sort of still in that third point is, if they can't commit, is working with them to find out why, sort of working with them on the barriers to them committing to the 1 day, committing to the 3 days over the 1 day of training, and sort of working with them to try and find out why it is that they have that barrier to being able to commit to it longer term, or commit to more, or commit to less, or whatever it is. Working with them to try and understand from their point of view why they can't do it is of huge importance for the long-term relationship and the long-term progress of that client. That takes us on to the 4th step. We've set goals, we have gone through what is needed, we have seen what they can now commit to. Then we look at setting priorities. Now this 4-step process can change for us. It can change from client to client, because fundamentally there is no cookie cutter approach that can definitely work for everyone. Everyone is very, very different, and the things sort of what works for some people does not necessarily work for others. So step 4, setting the priorities and helping them set their priorities in, and I'm going to stick with this example because rolling with it, we come through it all the way. So they want to lose that 10 kilos, they committed to 1 session a week, they've set their priorities, and if you are trying to lose that 10 kilos of body fat, nutrition probably does have to be really high up there as a priority. So helping the client, and then in this example, helping the client understand that nutrition really does have to be top of their priorities list, and then training is going to be of huge importance to helping them get to where they want to go. And you have to help them. This is something that can be a sticking point. Nutrition for a lot of people is a sticking point. There's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of conflicting information out there. People get confused, don't understand. So yeah, setting the priorities with our clients is helping them set their own priorities and giving them everything that they can through this 1, 2, and 3, the first 3 steps, to then help them understand help them firstly select their own priorities, then try and help them understand that what priorities probably need to be closer to the top, whether it is, in this case, nutrition. If for someone else trying to add 20 kilos to the back squat, is probably going to be training a little bit higher. Nutrition, obviously, for everyone is still hugely important. But if they then can't perhaps set the nutrition priority quite as high up their list, and they can't be quite as high up there as you feel that they need to be, or that they think, or that you think they should be, or that we think they should be, then we really work with them to try and firstly understand why it needs to be up there. And this all ties in with education and educating the clients, and it's something I spoke about, I think it was either in the episode 5, I think it was something like that, or 6, about training being more than a good workout. Education is a huge part for us in giving the clients as much as we possibly can to then help them make their own decisions. So yeah, helping them understand the priorities, and that is the 4-step process that we work through with, generally what we work through with our clients in that first initial phase, or the first initial buildings of that relationship, to help them set their goals and then talk them through what's needed, help them then try and commit, or help find out what they can commit to, and then finally setting their priorities for the longer term. Episode 8, we are done. Thank you so much for listening. That was an enjoyable one. This stuff's super interesting. This episode more geared to sort of psychological things, sort of priorities and mindset and those kinds of things, which is for me super interesting, and something that I've become much more interested in more recently, just because it plays a big role, whether it is on your nutrition, particularly on your nutrition. Nutrition is a big mindset game. Training, big mindset game, and having your mindset in the right place and your priorities in the right place go a huge way to you helping you make progress. So if you do have any further questions on any of this, whether it is how we set goals, what is needed, commitment, priorities, aligning your actions, whatever it is, please do fire them our way at fortem.training on Instagram, at Kieran Douglas Jones on Instagram, or send us an email to info@fortemtraining.com, and I will answer them right there. In the message. I will also get them answered, on the podcast. We're really looking for questions. I would love for any feedback as well. If you do have any feedback, please do fire it our way. I'm hugely thankful for everyone listening so far. I really do appreciate it. It's actually been listened to by a lot more people than I originally imagined. This has been recorded on the 25th, so episode 1 went live a little bit earlier this week. It's Friday, went live on Tuesday, and the feedback I've had so far, I cannot thank you enough. I'm hugely appreciative, and I would welcome any more feedback at all, good, bad, ugly, whatever it is. Please do send it my way. I've become very thick-skinned. Whatever you want to say to me, I will take on board, and I will listen and try to do better. But yeah, I certainly hope you are enjoying the podcast. I am certainly enjoying recording. It's very good fun. I get to talk a lot, get to drink coffee and talk a lot, which is always very good fun. Couple of guests getting lined up. The video, I didn't have a chance to run and get that camera, so the video has just cut out for this little piece at the end. For those of you watching on YouTube, those of you listening, no change. But yeah, guests, I've got a couple of guests lined up that will be coming very soon. I do believe nothing set in stone as yet, but the longer term plan is to definitely bring some guests on. All that remains to be said is please do go follow on Instagram at Fortem.trading at Kieran Douglas Jones. Send us your questions, send us your feedback. Please, 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 please do get in touch. I really would appreciate it. If you are watching on YouTube, don't forget we are now on iTunes and on Stitcher on Android. We're also on SoundCloud if you would like to listen, and if you are listening on any of those platforms, we are also on YouTube with video for any of you that are interested. Please do leave a like on YouTube, 5-star rating on iTunes if you did enjoy. Please, please, please do. It certainly helps a huge, huge amount. Thank you for listening, and you will hear me again in episode 9.